Trying to organize with other folks on the political left is a little bit like trying to have a healthy conversation with your toxic mother-in-law. And hang in there, because I don't want to just bitch. I want to move towards solutions, right? As a permaculture person, I'm always talking about how can the problem be the solution? How can we view things through the lens of like, okay, this is not so great right now. Things are going sideways, but what is the lesson that we can take away so that we can change our strategy, change our communication skills, and learn to have healthier relationships and be more successful? So please hang in there with me. And honestly, I'm grateful for this comment because it gives me a chance to bring up a subject that I spoke about a lot in the before times, a concept that I'm really familiar with when we're talking about relationships within our families, entirely applicable in this space as well. And I don't think that it's been broached enough, so let me broach it. Now, my visually impaired viewers remind me that their transcription software will do captions, but it won't read out the comments. So let me read this really quickly and then we'll get into it. Dawn says, I'm just getting so tired of the infighting. There's so many more important things to be talking about and to be focusing on. I've started blocking people right and left. This doesn't help move us forward in any way. Now, I asked Dawn in a reply comment what they meant by infighting, and they declined to answer, saying that they felt that my question was not asked in good faith, right? That it was a disingenuous question. I don't ask disingenuous questions. I wanted to know so that I could more effectively respond to this comment, but I'm just going to roll with it since I'm not getting clarification. Now, this is in response to my video that was responding to Good Trouble's video that was part of a larger discourse around creators going to Minnesota and profiting off of covering what's happening there and what are our ethical obligations as social media creators who also consider ourselves part of the pro-democracy resistance. So, Dawn, let me just say that disagreement and conflict is not infighting, and it's also not toxic. Conflict is really important, not only for growth in interpersonal relationships, but also for the growth of social movements. It's super healthy to have conflict. And in the United States, especially white people, we are really, really bad at having conflict in a healthy way. So many Americans, particularly white Americans, particularly Americans of certain age demographics, tend to be incredibly conflict avoidant and falsely represent conflict as infighting or discord or as a bad thing because we don't have good distress tolerance skills in this culture. Conflict can be distressing. Therefore, because we don't like to feel distress, we don't know how to manage our distress, we haven't built up those skills, we tend to avoid conflict, which just hinders all of us because conflict is how we grow. Healthy conflict is how we work through issues and we grow in our relationships with each other and as individuals. And so I want to introduce you to a term, Dawn, and anybody else watching, that you may not be familiar with. It's something I discussed extensively in the period before this hellscape that we're all living in now. And that is the term dishonest harmony. This is something that I think is the standard operating procedure in many American households. Dishonest harmony says, if you say something that upsets somebody, then you're the problem. If you bring up an issue and want to work through it, you are going to cause other people in your group or your family to feel uncomfortable things, and therefore you are the problem. Dishonest harmony is this kind of surface level veneer, this performance of we're all getting along because we don't want to talk about hard truths. We don't want to work through that conflict because it doesn't feel good to us. Right. And in a specific family situation, this is where if you bring up some harm that's being done, or you want to talk through something that's not going well, then you are seen as the problem. And in the larger context of a movement or a society, this very much manifests as the white person, especially a white woman's right to comfort. That marginalized people, marginalized groups shouldn't speak out about the oppression and injustice that they are experiencing because the comfort of white people is more important than the rights and safety of marginalized people. Dishonest harmony is an outgrowth, is a manifestation of the white person's right to comfort. This is why I used to speak so much about dishonest harmony versus honest conflict. When you are united around a common purpose and you are respecting the dignity and humanity of other people in your group, when you have trust with other people in your group, conflict doesn't look big and scary. Conflict doesn't look like a bad thing, and you handle it in a healthy way. I realize on social media, it does not get handled in a healthy way. It often comes in the form of call-outs and smackdowns and wanting to cancel people and shouting over people and sending your fans to go attack people and dogpiling, having like weird parasocial relationships where you feel like it is is your duty to go attack somebody who you feel has slighted or like even lightly criticized some giant social media creator. But just because conflict is often engaged in a really toxic way online, I don't think that we should then abandon conflict as a tool that we can use for interpersonal growth, building trust with each other, helping us become better people, and also helping us refine our tactics as a social justice movement. It is getting really dark and I think it's going to storm, so let me turn a light on. By being conflict avoidant, not only are we harming our movement and denying ourselves opportunity for growth, but we're saying that the comfort of some people is more important than the safety and well-being of others. And unfortunately, dishonest harmony is not always entirely about minimizing certain people's distress and helping them not feel uncomfortable feelings. It can also be weaponized in a way that attempts to silence really important disagreement. It can be used as a weapon to try to vilify people who want to raise real legitimate concerns. And I see this a lot on Blue Sky, actually. Anytime you criticize the DNC or the DCCC, like Blue MAGA, and I think a lot of those are bots, come out of the woodwork. And they'll say like, this is infighting, right? Don't criticize Chuck Schumer. That's infighting. And it's always this, like, we have to be unified right now. We can't have any criticism because we've got to be unified. We can be united in a common cause and continue to organize together while at the same time tweaking and honing and resolving conflict from within. Having disagreement with other people, that doesn't mean that you're not unified in your cause. In fact, if you have unity that includes real trust, you should be open to conflict. You should be open to disagreement, and you should, like, low-key be okay with people not seeing eye to eye all of the time. And it is interesting to me to see from accounts, especially ones that are like big DNC corporate Democrat establishment stands, this weaponization where any disagreement is viewed as a threat to the movement. A healthy movement not only tolerates conflict, it welcomes it. An unhealthy movement is one that says any dissent, any disagreement is a threat to our cause and will cause us to fall apart and crumble, is threatening unity, right? Disagreement is not infighting. Disagreement is normal and healthy and is a tool that we should learn how to use. We've got to build those skills so that we can have conflict with each other in a way that is productive and good, builds trust, helps us move and grow and become more effective. Conflict is hard for you, if conflict to you feels scary and threatening and you are worried that the pro-democracy movement will fall apart or your relationships with other people will fall apart just because someone is like, hey, can we talk about this thing that everybody pretends like we can't talk about? Or, hey, like, I don't really agree with you on this particular point of policy or what have you. If that is scary to you, if that feels threatening to you, I really encourage you to maybe spend some time diving into DBT therapy, spend some time learning distress tolerance skills, spend some time learning about where it is, like connecting with your past. Where is it that you got this false idea that disagreement and conflict is bad? Where is it that you cultivated this need for dishonest harmony? And how is it hindering us in this moment? Talking about ways that social media creators can be more effective in using the resources that we have, talking about the ways that all of us as the American people have got to sacrifice, have an honest conversation about what level of sacrifice we have to engage in right now to stop fascism. Like everybody, what is it that we each have? What are our unique capabilities and resources that we can bring to the table? What is it that we are willing to risk? That's a really good conversation to have. And trying to shut that down as infighting, that's hindering us like in a really significant way. Like I'm begging y'all, we cannot put our own desire for comfort and our unwillingness to learn distress tolerance skills. We can't put that above the success of our movement. How would the pro-democracy movement be more successful and more unified and more effective if we learned to have conflict in a healthy way? What would that look like? How is it that conflict can be a tool to help us do better?